So let's move to our panel discussion on psychological aspects of personal branding. And actually, it's really interesting topic because I have a degree in business psychology myself, so I'm really interested, and it would be great to discuss it and together with Sarah Mittal, director of Ipsos Behavioral Science Center. So yeah, you have an amazing experience. Hi, Sarah.
Nice to
And
meet you all.
yeah, and Marco Baldotti. Marco is CEO of. Actually, you have a lot of companies in your profile, so probably you will explain it better than I do. But Marco is a neuromarketing expert and a speaker. So please tell us more a little bit about yourself, and then we can jump to the questions. Who would like to start?
Sure, I'll get started. Thanks, Marco. Sarah Middle. My background is a PhD in consumer behavior, consumer psychology. I taught in the marketing department of a couple of universities for about a decade, and then transitioned over to the Behavioral Science Center at Ipsos, where I'm a director there and work on embedding consumer psychology into the marketing research that we do. And thanks for having me.
Hi all, my name is Marco Baldotti. I am specialized in consumer neuroscience in the United States. I'm author about some books. I was former in Italy for some university, and now with my company in Italy and in the United States, we work about neuroscience applied to marketing, branding for the most consumer behavior.
Great. That sounds amazing. So thank you. Thank you for joining us today. And you are great experts. And I'm just looking forward to our discussion. And actually, I would like to ask you about today in general. We are going to talk about how neuroscience, neuromarketing, and psychology can help you effectively communicate on social media and build your personal brand, and how maybe you can use some psychological triggers, some specifics of your audiences, and some other behavioral economics facts and maybe research data to build your personal brand more effectively. And actually, the first question to you will be about, we actually talked before about some both emotional and rational elements of social media representation. And it's interesting to learn more about how to create a first impression and attract attention of your audiences. So could you please share what kind of psychological or neuromarketing specifics you can use, some research data or something else? So who would like to start?
Sure, I'll take this one to start. And I think we should always take a step back as we think about a first impression. And just like a good brand, think about who our audience is, right? Like our goal probably is not to become internet or Kim Kardashian famous, but rather think about who is our tribe, right? Like who is most likely to engage with us depending on what the platform is. And what are they looking for? What do they value? And then really tailoring sort of how we appear to them. And one way to think about that is as we narrow in on who our tribe is, what does an expert sort of in our field or in our tribe look like? And what are the cues that we can send out to convey our expertise more intuitively maybe than what are people going to be looking for? What sorts of cues? So is that a certification? Is that a certain background or experience that we need to make sure to highlight? Or more subtly, well, how do we appear in our pictures and our imagery? So there's some really nice recent research where they looked at influencers who showed off luxury or status types of products in their profiles. And what they found is that if this was relevant for your line of work, it made sense, right? You're showing that you're an expert sort of in this area. You have personal experience. But if luxury or status products were not relevant, then what happened was a bit of a backfire effect, that people viewed this individual, this influencer, as perhaps more self-motivated, more materialistic, probably isn't going to have my personal views or interest at heart. And so I think that's a nice example of when you consider sort of who your target audience is, what's relevant for your field. How should you show up? Is it important to be family oriented or not? Is it important to have certain credentials? Some other sort of broader, nice examples from consumer psychology of how we appear and sort of can't help ourselves in terms of making first impression judgments is for men, what they found is that if you have a beard, that we oftentimes use beards as an indicator of sort of expertise in your field when no other signs are present. And so when you consider having your LinkedIn profile picture, for example, maybe consider donning a beard, even if you don't in your day-to-day life. This doesn't help us ladies though, right? And so what does the research say for women in industry? Well, what we can do is wear spectacles. I actually did this in some of my job interviews when I first showed up as a young academic professor, wanting to make sure that I didn't look too young. Is if you wear glasses, they find that you are perceived as more qualified and more of an expert, more credentialed in your area. So really easy things we can do. Another nice insight is that they find that if your imagery is overly photoshopped, even if it's imagery related to your product or service, that again, people have sort of this intuitive light bulb that's like, there's something uncanny about this that feels inauthentic. So making sure that we're showing authentic imagery of ourselves. In thinking about authenticity, the last point that I want to make, and then I'll turn it over to Marco, is the idea of there are probably other experts in our field. So what makes us unique? Just like a brand, you know, what is something that we have that can help us stand out? Is that our background? Maybe it's even a tangential hobby or skill or the journey that we took to get here. What is something unique about us that we bring to the table that we can make sure to highlight as our sort of unique selling proposition for a personal brand? So those were some of the points I wanted to highlight on making a first impression. I'll turn it over to you, Marco.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you especially for the bird. I'm very happy about that. Thank you also to you, Olga, for the amazing question. Making a solid first impression on social media is absolutely key, and tapping into a bit of neuromarketing psychology can give us a real edge. So I want to bring three topics about this question. The first one is the 7 seconds theory. Probably you might have heard that we form our first impression in just 7 seconds or even less. This happened because our brain's quick processing areas like the amygdala, which is responsible for the immediate emotional responses and survival instinct, is constantly scanning new information to decide if something is worth our attention. The attention is a very precious thing for us, like human beings. On social media, this means that you've got a blink of an eye moment to catch someone's eyes. Using striking visual, bold headlines, or compelling stories can activate the amygdala and make people stop scrolling, and it's very important. The key is to create content that immediately resonates on an emotional level, not only a rational one, and we will talk about later, prompting the brain to pay attention. The second one is considering the human being as naturally self-interested creatures. Now, I don't mean that we are selfish in a bad way, but a little bit we are. It's just our brain are wired to look out for ourselves. The prefrontal cortex, which handles the decision-making and planning, is always evaluating information based on personal relevance and benefit. So when we are crafting content, think about the value we are providing to our audience is very important. Are you solving a problem, teaching something new, or offering entertainment? By delivering real value, you engage the brain reward centers like the nucleus accumbens, making people more likely to interact with your content and come back for more. The third and last point is the important, and I want to reconnect with one of the topics that Sarah spoke before, is the importance of authenticity and staying true to your values. People can sense authenticity, and it's a big deal in building trust. This is partly due on the mirror neurons, which help us understand and empathize with others. When you are genuine, it activates these neurons in your audience, fostering a sense of connection and trust. Staying trust to your value and being consistent in your messaging reduce cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort we feel when things don't align, which is processed in areas like the anterior cingulate cortex. By being authentic, you make it easier for people to relate to you which encourage loyalty and long-term engagement.
Great, that's so interesting. So summarizing it from the emotional perspective, you can influence people by some, I don't know, beard, glasses or something like that. Yeah, some other effects. And from the rational perspective, you can, for example, just build your sincere personal brand, broadcast your values on social media, right? Is it about that? Like this kind. Okay, great. Yeah. So we've discussed how to build first impression, but of course it's not enough. We need to continue, continue engaging our audiences and build relationships. After that, we need second impression and the third impression, etc., etc. So actually, and it would be great if all of these efforts lead to some business results after all. So what do you think about it from the neuromarketing and psychology perspective? What kind of methods and tactics we can use to be more effective in our engagement and building relationships on social media?
I can start for this question, and I mean that it's very important to figure out when we talk about business to consumer or business to business, because often we talk about when we create our image, we think about the business to consumer, but we often work in business to business. So it's very important to figure out also that in business to business, emotion and rational are play a crucial role. Let me explain by introducing the concept of cognitive cruise. Imagine the decision-making as a journey where the winds of emotion meets the waves of rationality. During this cruise, we are navigating both emotional and logical factors before reaching our final destination, that's a decision. Emotion, in this case, aren't limited to joy or anger. They are also including feeling like trust, confidence, especially safety, which are incredibly important, for example, in B2B relationships. For example, a company might choose a supplier not just because of cost or features, but because they feel secure about the supplier reliability and long-term support. And this sense of safety, it's an emotional response that significantly influences rational decision-making and create a relationship between supplier and potential customers. And very important thing, and connected also with authenticity, it's connected with the artificial intelligence. We live in the era of artificial intelligence and data analytics. And it's easy to assume that the decisions are becoming entirely data-driven. However, it's important to remember that the humans are still the helm of the choice. Research in neuroscience and psychology suggests that a substantial portion of our decision-making is influenced by subconscious emotion processes in parts of the brain, like the limbic system, which then influence our conscious rational thought processes and in the proper context. Essentially, we often make decisions based on emotional responses, and then we rationalize our responses. For example, in my case, I can tell you that we analyze a lot of this case, a lot of marketing campaigns in business to business. And our goal is to find the balance between emotion and rationality and how to integrate both of them.
It's actually really interesting because I think that some marketing professionals, they have this stereotype that for B2B audiences, you need only rational communication because it's business, it's serious, it shouldn't be emotional at all. And what do you think about that? Does it work this way, and B2B and B2C approaches could be different, or it's all the same? We are all humans after all. So what do you think about it?
Yeah, I think probably Marco and I would agree that at the end of the day, it's still a human making a decision. And so we can't help but be biased in the ways that our brain works and operates and makes sense of the world. And to sort of echo his point about, there's a lot of unconscious things that are happening and how we make sense of our world. There's this really nice book called The Storytelling Animal, and essentially says that as humans, the way that we assign meaning to the things that happen in our lives and make sense of history and where we're going is through storytelling. And so I think that's actually a really powerful lever to think about pulling in personal branding as well, is how can we use storytelling to meld that rational sort of showing we're an expert with the emotional piece. So how can we tell a story about a time that we solved a problem for a client, which is showcasing that rational expert piece that they're looking for and need, but also put a twist on it that shows sort of a personal touch that we gave or a hiccup we ran into that feels more authentic to connect to. The other way that we can think about aligning to both parts of our brain is to use imagery whenever possible. We know from prior research that images are quicker, easier to process, and also easier to recall. So anytime that we can tell a story with not just words, so audio, we're making a recording like we are today, or typing up a post, but also complement that with an image that's relevant and contextualized and helps to tell the story, it's more likely to engage and easier to be recalled later.
Well, yeah, especially videos. I think on LinkedIn now it's a huge thing, and the great formats to try. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Mark, would you like to add something about like this B2B, B2C conflict?
Yeah. Consider that I'm totally agree with Sarah, because it's a very important thing to consider that we are an amazing animal with a lot of fight inside us, or cooperation, like you prefer, from the rational and irrational part. And it's very important to engage people all over the emotion, the rational part. Is not just to create an emotion or engage rationally. Yes, it's true that sometimes in business to business, it's data-driven information are very important, but the data-driven information are just a tool to create an emotion. In this case, for example, trust, and so we are connected with emotion. And the last thing that I want to add about this is about that. At the end of the day, it's people making decisions. So that's the reason why it's very important incorporating emotional components into a business strategy, for example, doesn't detract from the rational aspect. Instead, it's a complement them by connecting with the audience on a, I can say, like a deeper level.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yeah, when you both influence them emotionally and rationally, of course, it's much, much deeper than just some one thing. And actually, when we talked before our panel, Sarah, you mentioned system 1 and system 2. Could you please tell us more about that, how it works and how it can help us to build personal brand?
Sure. I think, system 1 is essentially the part that's always running in the background. It's our intuitive, it's our intuition, it's our gut. And we can't help but be influenced by it as much as we try. And our system 2 is our rational side of our brain that is taking time to analyze the data and make sense of it and understand the pros and cons of a decision, for example, or do I want to listen to this person? But at the end of the day, both processes are at work, and our system 2 is influenced and fed into by our system 1 intuitions and feelings. And we struggle as humans to sort of separate those two. And one of the things that we talk about a lot in our line of research is using sort of people's system 1 motivations. What are the ways that they approach a decision, for example? We talk a lot about having like a promotion mindset versus a prevention mindset, maybe as a business decision maker. And then if we can frame the same message, but in a way that aligns with the proper mindset, they're again more likely to engage. They may not be able to tell you exactly why that is, but it's because it feels more intuitive then. So a prevention mindset is going to be one where you talk about, hey, choosing me is about avoiding missteps. My company has guarantees, that it's very much about taking care of obligations. Whereas a promotion mindset is going to be very much around framing your personal brand and your product about how can you get more out of your company or for your company, focused on growth or exciting new opportunities. You can see they're very different framings, but you could frame the same service or product in a different way to align to those underlying motivations. And so we do a lot of work to try and identify what are the underlying motivations that people bring to the decision context, and then helping brands to try and like frame that up. And I think that's extremely relevant here too, when you think about your personal brand, is as a business decision maker, in your audience. What do they care about? What are their personal goals? What identity is relevant to them? And what are the ways that we can cue those goals and identities to make our content feel more self-relevant as they engage with it?
Yeah, thank you. That's really interesting. And actually, I would like to learn more about neuromarketing perspective. That we also discussed it a little bit how it works. Could you please tell our participants how actually neuromarketing works and how, for example, you can maybe measure the effect of some, I don't know, piece of content on people or something else?
Sure. Sure. We use biomedical tools like electroencephalography, eye tracking, and other tools to figure out exactly what happens in the human mind and body when they have an experience. Why? Because the rational part of our brain is influenced by our biases, and so sometimes we are not able to share really our thoughts. And sometimes we lie because we love to lie, or because we feel ourselves more comfortable lying. Okay, and because often, for example, we give the answer that the people that is in front of us want to receive instead of the things that we really think. But there is a lot of emotion very fast that we are not able to save in our rational part of our brain. So sometimes we have emotion that we are not able to really rationalize. And so in this case, we lie not just because we want to lie, but because we are not able to perceive exactly what we are feeling about the product or services or a person, for example. So it's a really an amazing dance. And we found during our researches, we found a huge difference between the things that people say and the things that people really feel, like emotion, like reaction. And I think it's very connected with the concept. It's about the needs. Because when we talk about needs, we talk about the conscious need. But we never think about the hidden need. We have two different type of needs. The conscious needs are the wants and requirements that, for example, people are fully aware of and can easily express and share with others. The hidden need are the desire that underlying desire or motivation that we can have, but we are not totally conscious about that. So it's very important if you are able to intercept the inner need of your customers doing a neuromarketing research, you can be different from other companies, for example, because basically all the companies work on the conscious need. And if you see, for example, 10 different websites of companies that work in the same industry, you find the same messages, a little bit different, but the same, because they intercept only the conscious need. If you are able to intercept the unconscious need, you can be salient. And often it's connected with a small detail of your company. Our brain is an amazing machine. And when you tell a story, for example, the thing that easily you save in your mind, like memory, is a detail more than all the story. And it's an incredible opportunity that we have thanks to our brain. So sometimes it's very important to, if you are working in a very competitive field, you can be just another one. And I can do some example. For example, you probably have bought once in your life the Red Bull. Why the Red Bull had this amazing success? One of the first things is that the can is smaller than the normal can. And for our brain, it's something different. I can say the same for Pringles chips or Toblerone, that it's like a triangle chocolate. And they be different. And they create a mark. When you are in a supermarket, you have tons of chips, but easily you can recognize the Pringles thanks to the shape of the can. So probably they figure out that they need something to be different. Otherwise, they are just another chip.
So, if we are talking about personal branding, does it mean that, for example, I don't know, I've colored my hair red, and I'm trying to be different. So, is it about that to be so different from other people, so they just pay their attention on us, and they start
Can
react.
be details, for example, can be details. If I watch well, you have in probably your website or something the ducks, and you have the same ducks behind you, and it's something. It's like an anchor. It's like a visual anchor. Okay, and yes, be different. It's also in your image, and it's be authentic because we are all different, and more you are authentic, and more you are interesting for your potential public because they see you as a human being and not just as a professional. And the second thing is about your content. If you try to talk about the same thing, so the same way, like other 100 or 1,000 professionals, you are just one of them. Probably you are the best, could be, but people don't are able to make a comparison because they receive tons of stimuli, and our brain is not programmed to save all these stimuli. So we save just the things that are very interesting for us. Do you remember when I told we are a little bit egoist animal? Yes, we are. But it's a natural way to be egoist. So it's very important to be different, also in the way you propose your content, also in the way you, and how to be different, how to be unique, because we are unique. My way to explain is not Sarah's one, is not yours, and it's not, because it's normal. I'm Italian, I have my Italian accent, and so I move a lot with my hands. I'm Italian, you know. So it's not, and that's me. And if you listen to my podcast or if you watch my videos, or you can find myself like Marco human being before Marco professional. And that's me. People can like, people not, but it's okay. I'm unique in my way, like you are unique in yours. Sarah is unique in hers, and that's it.
Yeah, that sounds really amazing to find something unique in yourself and just show it to the audiences, to the public. Yeah,
Don't
just
copy the others. My suggestion is don't copy the others. Sometimes people have an idea, have a professional that they love, and they try to copy the way to work. Don't do this. You are unique. Work on your way. It's longer, could be, but it's you.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to find yourself, like your public image. So, Sarah, would you like to add something on that, or
Yeah, I
maybe?
do think, it doesn't have to be that you look unique, but it could be your tone of voice, right? Or your story, like we talked about. Or when I used to teach, I would always introduce my French bulldog at the start of the school year because a lot of students had pets. So I knew that was relatable. So finding sort of something that is unique to you, and it can be something personal that you bring into some of your content, or it could be even just your tone. Maybe you've decided that you found a way to talk about your expertise or give simple hacks via memes, right? Whatever the case is, I think like owning it and being authentic in the way that you present is really important. The one other thing I wanted to circle us back to, Olga, was that idea of, because we're talking about personal branding, it's not all about just being a one way form of communication, right? We certainly are putting ourselves out in the world, but I think the most powerful influencers in whatever area are ones that do a really nice job at engaging their audience. So remembering that people want to feel like they're a part of something. So when we create content, what are the ways that we can engage them? Can we ask for their opinion? Share how you're dealing with this challenge for your particular business, or tell me what your challenges are and let's try and problem solve them. There's some recent research on this idea of reciprocal intimacies, which is making sure that you interact not just one to many, but also take some opportunities to interact one to one, is a really important way to build sort of that. It feels like a more personal connection with your audience, right? And it can also help create a sense of community as they interact with each other. If there's anyone that I could like point to as a great example right now is Emily Oster. I don't know if anyone's heard of her, but she takes behavioral economics and applies it to parenting. And she leverages all of these strategies where she has a day where she takes Q&A and people ask her questions and she answers them directly. She takes parenting goals and then applies behavioral science to the goals or key questions that people have in their role as a parent. And I think that's just a really powerful example. If you're looking for like who does personal branding really well, I would point you to her content. And her personal thing, since we've talked about like what makes her unique, is that she does running. I mean, beyond being a behavioral economic professor, is like she also talks about her passion for running. And so it's really like a nice compilation or example of taking a lot of the things we've talked about today and applying them in the real world if you're looking for like a real world case study.
Yeah, thank you so much. And actually, if you allow me to spend 2 more minutes, I will ask you a question from one of our participants. Would it be okay? Yeah. So, thank you. So the question is about the future, actually, about some trends in people behavior on social media that we will face in the coming 1 to 3 years. Of course, it's difficult to do some predictions, but maybe you can try if you want. Yeah. What do you think?
I can start. I think that authenticity will be one of the most important topics in the next years. Also, thanks to the artificial intelligence, we had a lot of content that make very complicated for us to figure out what's real and what's not. And I think that we had like an initial period of real love with artificial intelligence, and we abuse of these, we overuse. And now I see a little bit of inversion of this situation. Like now people want to see real picture, real videos, probably not perfect. It's the same things with the videos. I had some customers that makes videos, amazing videos, like movies, and sometimes videos with less techniques but more real had a better result. Why it happens? Because if you are talking to your customers not just to make a show, but you want to, inside your message there is a real value. It's not important the form, the shape of your message. It's important the content. I remember when I started doing my first job, people talk about content is the king. It was one of the leitmotiv in the past. Okay, I think that it will be true again. It's very important to not be fake. We live in the era of gurus. We live in the era where people can tell you how to become, I don't know, billionaire in 5 days, just spending 2 hours working and something similar. And people are tired of that. For people, it's complicated to figure out who is real and who is not. I want to talk about connected with personal branding. I want to talk about LinkedIn, for example. LinkedIn was an amazing place till 5 years ago. Now LinkedIn is the 90% commercial messages that tell you that you will become the best author in the world in 3 days. And if I trust all the messages I received, probably I had 1,000 books published. I had, I don't know, 1,000 TEDx speech, and the very interesting things. Absolutely, tons of clients. And the very interesting thing is that these messages is not interesting for me, but it's worse for the platform. It's worse for the social media. One of these guys told me, do you dream to have a TEDx speech? And my answer was, I had twice. So I'm done. I'm okay. So there are so many people, they really don't watch it to you. They just send messages like to do. It's very important to make craft messages dedicated to your public. And it will be, in my opinion, the future to be more selective. Years ago, I accepted tons of requests on LinkedIn. Now, before I accept someone, I want to go and check why we can have a reciprocal interest in be connected. And I think it's just because I receive too much spam, too much messages that are fake. So the trustability, the authenticity, I think will be the key more than now. So don't show that you are living in Dubai or you have Lamborghini. It still stopped working.
Yeah, I really like the idea that we are moving from this stage of empty promises to in the more like authentic approach. Yeah, it's really great. Sarah, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I think the role of AI is really interesting right now as we see even artificial influencers come to life, right? Where it's not even a human, it is a brand behind it telling a story. sometimes very effectively. And so I think as people become more aware of this happening, and also as Marco mentioned, we are just inundated with content. And so this idea of sort of like selective perception, that we simply cannot pay attention to all of it in our way of coping with the mass amounts of information coming at us on social media, is to selectively perceive a very small percent of it. We only actually process it, this little bitty part, right? And so how do we become even more purposeful? And again, thinking about who our tribe is. Like, we don't need, if you appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one, right? And so who is our specific tribe? How can we deliver value just for them and do it in a way that is authentic to us, but also relevant to them and their goals and what they care about, to make sure that we make it through that perceptual screen?
And actually, it's interesting about artificial influencers. Do you think it will still be alive in, I don't know, in 1 to 3 years? Is it the good concept, or it's not such a good idea to build this kind of artificial influencer?
I think it could be a good idea if there is a good story behind. It's the same thing. It's everything is about storytelling. If there is a good story behind, why not? I think that a very interesting concept is about our level of attention. Every single year, research are showing us that the threshold of our attention is going down, 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 down. Before we had few seconds, now we have, before we have a lot of seconds of attention, and now we have few seconds of attention. So it became very important to be salient and find a way to get that attention, because people now are so busy. We live in crazy lives, running all the day, receiving tons of stimuli. Get the attention of a potential customers or a person where you want to talk with. It's complicated. It's more complicated now than 5 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sarah, what do you think about artificial influencers? Is it a working concept in 1 to 3 years?
I think so, but the role that I see them playing is more as like the next level of brand mascots, right? Like, you think about the Geico Gecko, or the girl for Wendy's who has a great personality, right? Like, I see it as a way to bring sort of those brand characters to life and do more extensive brand storytelling than they have in the past. But I don't see them as replacing some of those brand influencers. Like, there's lots of research now that shows that it is the micro influencers that really have an impact on engagement with a brand and sales, versus those macro influencers like the Kim Kardashians of the world. Instead, right, if you really want to have an impact on this little niche group of people, get someone who's in their group, who's in their tribe, right? And so I don't think that like it's one or the other. I don't think we'll like live in a world where it's all artificial influencers, but I do think they could be a powerful tool in the brand bucket, so to say.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think that, of course, first we want authenticity, and it's more important than some artificial personal brands. Yeah, and real people will be valuable. Yeah. So, thank you so much. It was very, very insightful. And I would like just to show again the profiles of Sarah and Marco. Please connect on LinkedIn if you're interested in their area of expertise. And thank you so much. It was really useful. And I think it's important to discuss this topic of personal branding from this perspective. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. So, and we're finishing our conference. At the end, I would like to recommend to visit our website, motomap.com, if you are interested in social selling services, and our YouTube channel for some videos from the previous conferences and podcast series. So also, of course, we'll share the videos with those who registered. We'll share the videos, the slides, and some additional materials for you you to explore, like guides on AI for social selling and personal branding and some other materials. So thank you so much. And my team, my team of 30 plus professionals, Modern Up team, says thank you for participating. And we've prepared this conference all together. And I would like to say a special thank you to my colleague, Kate Albregina from my team. She's a marketing director and project director in our team, and she actually did that. She found all of the speakers, she negotiated it with them, and actually she prepared a lot of information for our conference, and we worked closely together with her. So Kate or Ekaterina, thank you so much. You are a rock. Yeah, you're just great. So thank you everyone who's listening to us, and thank you for your time. And I hope it was a really useful and insightful event for all of you. So thank you, and we will finish our stream. And of course, if you have any additional questions, please reach out on LinkedIn. I'm Olga Bondareva. You can find me on LinkedIn. Or we will also send an email. You can reply if you have any questions or comments. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn and other platforms. And with the speakers, everyone is so open. If you want to ask some additional questions, just do it. So thank you so much, and good luck with your personal branding efforts, activities on LinkedIn and other platform. Be authentic, be real, and disciplined, because it's important to maintain discipline. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.